and that's never a good thing. But Oakland County has prepared for us 275 automatic sirens which go off to let us know when the weather is getting very severe, maybe the severe weather is already here. They go off and let us know it's time to seek shelter. Get in the house, get in the basement, pick up your pets. If you've left the lawn furniture out, it probably won't be there when you get back out. The first Saturday of every month at 1 o'clock, Oakland County tests those sirens. If you have small children who are napping, maybe you don't like that, but for the rest of us, it's a timely warning that it's time to seek shelter. This week on Wednesday at 1 o'clock, the state of Michigan is having a voluntary statewide tornado drill. So the alarms will go off again at 1 o'clock to let us know. Before that happens is a good time to go through your house and make sure you have all your preparedness supplies, your food, health, maintenance, medicines. If a tornado does come through town, well, when a tornado comes through town, that's not the time to be going up to Kroger to try and get your water and your batteries and your health maintenance medicines. You should already have those set aside. The EPC has lists to help you to find out, to know what you should have. On our Facebook site, we have this GRE code, which will take you to Oakland County. Oakland County has tremendous resources there. We used to get all this stuff printed out. Well, now rather than print it out, it's there for you on the computers. Some of us old guys are always worried about when the computers are going to go down. We still have printed literature to be had. We'll be distributing it at the Founders Festival with our little orange sticker on it, with all the printed literature that you can have. If nothing else, it helps you to light your barbecue fire. But again, on the serious side, we've had enough of the weather. DTE is like on speed dial anymore. And I'm not throwing them under the bus. When the tornadoes come, you know, right down here across Grand River, they pulled down all the power poles, and for 3 to 4 to 7 days, we had no power in the house. And the next time we come back, we'll talk about the proper way to maintain your generators so the carbon monoxide doesn't kill you, and the supplies that you should have in your house to take care of yourself, your children, and my personal favorite, your dog. Any questions? No?
Mike, thank you very much.
Thank you again.
The tip of the month is always helpful for us, and preparing for a high weather season is also timely. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep. Any other members of the public who wish to address the City Council? Seeing none. Next item on the agenda is item 6, new business. Item 6A, TextMyGov.
Hi, Council. Thank you. As you know, I'm working with some of the staff here and putting together a new website for Farmington. It's going to be really cool. But as I was doing it, I really was looking into a feature to push out more text. So aside from Nixle, because everyone associates that with emergencies, we want to push out whether or not the ice rink is closed or voting information. A lot of press releases I'd like to be able to push out. So in my research, we found a company called TextMyGov where it doesn't only allow me to push messages out, and a lot of them do this now, but you can do it in groups. So you could register for only events or only, I won't say it, DPW problems or, I won't say the one, or road closures. So, and you can register for election information and get only those messages. So that's a cool feature. The TextMyGov also has a push that does something. They work with the Amber Alert system so they can push out more messages than Nixle does for public safety. So I've been working on this with Bob, and he likes it too. But what's also cool about this is it will allow residents to text, I don't want to say us because we won't be texting them back, but text an automated our website and get an answer. So they can text, is the ice rink open today? And they will get, yes, the ice rink's open today. No, it's not. So, I mean, at the back end, somebody will have to anticipate the questions and put these in. But what is my precinct? When is Strawberry Shortcake Day at the market? That kind of thing. And it will lead them either right to our website or a response. But most of the responses will be housed on our website, so it'll direct people there, and it should cut down on our calls. So you can try it out if you have your phones. Okay, I didn't bring my readers. Okay, text hi, thank you. I didn't see this coming. Okay, text hi to 435-265-4446. 235-265-4446, if you want. Anyway, so, thank you, Chuck. The program will cost $5,000 annually, and the initial is $8,250, and that is, we will replace Nixle with this in a year. We'll have a year time to roll the numbers over. TextMyGov also comes with a list of residents they purchase from the post office that we'll be able to insert, and then we'll just try to roll everyone over. So by next February, we would like to have this in place. So,
Thanks, Melissa. Questions from the council? Mr. Schneeman?
Melissa, I think I just heard you correctly say that Nixle would be retired in favor of TextMyGov, is that correct?
I did, yes.
And if we are already signed up for Nixle, will we automatically be transferred over to TextMyGov?
No, so we tried to do that already, which is why we're working with Nixle another year. They consider all that information confidential and will not give it to us. We're going to use Nixle to try to get everyone to switch, and we'll use the water bills and all the communication avenues we have to switch them over.
And what do we pay for Nixle, Ryan?
What is the $3,200 a year,
Okay, so the delta then would actually be
2,000,
closer to 2,000.
yes.
I mean, it sounds like it has got the potential to be a fantastic tool for residents. And hopefully take some of the workload off the shoulders of the administration as well. So, thanks for
You're welcome.
attention, yeah.
Ms. Taylor?
Thanks, Melissa, for putting this together. I've had a lot of feedback from residents, especially since the closing of Farmington Voice and the switch in the Observer, that we just don't know what's going on in Farmington anymore. And I say you should follow the city's social media page. Not everyone does that. If you are watching, please do. It's FarmGov. Anyway, I think this will be a fantastic tool to get in touch with people in a way that is very familiar to them and doesn't require searching for things, searching for websites, searching through social media pages. I predict it's going to be very popular, and I played around with it myself today. I reported a fake pothole and asked for election information, and it texted me back, this is how you do it. Walk me through the steps. It was very easy. So yeah, I'm looking forward to this, and yeah, thanks.
You're welcome.
I'll compliment you on another deft stroke of technology usage. In the proposal, the demo recording that you actually did with the provider, I think was also very, very robust in terms of what the tool can do, its capability. They went through a lot of upside potential, which I think was also, and I'll encourage members of the public too, if you look in the council packet, there is a link to the demo recording. I'll share that on social media later, but it is worth the time to watch that because I think they went through a lot of what this can do for the community. So thank you for taking the time to do that, you and Bob both, and spending the time to evaluate the tool in detail. So,
We are going to roll it out slowly, so we're not going to actually look for people to report problems right away until we have a good understanding of how many people will be using this and how. So we'll start with election information and the market.
yeah. It's just, it has a lot more, it's way more robust than Nixle's tool, and it has a lot more function and capability. So
does.
thank you for finding us a suitable upgrade. There's no other comments from the council. Is there a motion?
Move to approve the proposal and agreement with TextMyGov in the amount of $8,250 this fiscal year and $5,500 annually for the next 3 years.
Support.
Motion by Ms. Taylor, supported by Mrs. Balk. Clerk Bachman, will you please call the roll?
Balk.
Yes.
LaRussa.
Yes.
Perkins. Yes. Schneeman.
Yes.
Taylor.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries unanimously. Item 6B, thanks, Melissa. Item 6B, street crack sealing and overband RFP. Mr. Udi.
Good evening, Council and Mayor. This is, I believe, the fourth fiscal year we participated in the RFP program that's drafted by Wixom. Been a very valuable tool we've had to use in our toolbox. This year, we're looking at potentially being able to complete the whole community crack sealing program, first time through. So basically, this year, the cost per pound dropped by 1 penny per pound. So it doesn't sound like much, but, you know, every penny back in the city's pocket is a penny back into the resident's pocket, and a little bit more work to be created or completed. So with this, included in your council packet is the areas that we've completed so far to date and proposed areas to move into with this program. So I guess any questions for me, council?
Questions from the council? I have one. Is the expectation that all priority 1, 2, and 3 areas are completed, or is it, I guess, what's the scope of this appropriation? Is it for sure priority 1 and as much 2 and 3 as they can get to, or what's the scope?
That is the scope. Priority 1, if we get through priority 1, they move it into 2, and if 2 is completed, we move into 3, and just
Okay.
keep on going down the line.
So it's just predicated on how much they have to use to get through the priority 1 areas?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Now, understanding that there's a few streets that we have not included in the crack sealing program due to the condition of the streets.
Yeah, that was clear on the map.
Yep. Very good. I'm glad the map is clear.
I have,
Thank you, Austin and crew.
yes. Hopefully those roads make their way to the road program for fiscal '25. Other questions from the council? Hearing none, is there a motion?
I'm kidding.
Okay, I got it. Move to award fiscal year 2024-25 annual crack sealing overband contract to Wolverine Seal Coating per the RFP, pending city council approval of the fiscal year 2024-25 budget, and allow city administration to execute the contract in the amount of $45,000, subject to any minor amendments to the final form of the city manager's office and the city attorney's office.
Support.
Motion by Ms. Taylor, supported by Mrs. Balk. Clerk Bachman, will you please call the roll?
LaRusa?
Yes.
Perkins?
Yes.
Amon?
Yes.
Taylor?
Yes.
Bulk?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries unanimously. Item 6C is the DPW concrete replacement. Back to you, Mr. Udi.
This is the second year of concrete replacement at Public Works. This fiscal year, we actually had funds allocated both for roof improvements and concrete replacement, fuel pumps. So seeing that we had too many eggs in our basket of projects we wanted to complete, I spoke with Director of Finance, Chris Weber, and David Murphy, and Chris and David agreed that we should allocate the funding we all have dedicated to capital improvements over to concrete improvements and the fuel pumps and fuel tank replacements. So with that, we requested quotes from several different contractors. One of our longtime contractors we've used many times on concrete improvements gave us the most qualified proposal on it. I asked the contractor, would you consider expanding the scope of work? He explained to me that when he originally quoted it, he was based upon 2023-24 concrete prices. And at the time, he wasn't aware that he was going to have like a $10 to $12 per cubic yard cost increase. So he's going to honor his current quote, but any additional concrete replacements we choose to do, he was just asking for the current cost increase, which is about 50 cents per square foot. With that, we have the engineer's projected opinion of cost was $90,000 to do the scope of work that was bid. The contractor we're recommending, he was $83,822. We'd basically be looking to almost double that area scope of work and complete a lot more concrete replacement at Public Works. Now, this goes hand in hand with the next agenda item. So questions for me?
Mrs. Polk.
So you mentioned the roof and some of the, so those things you're pushing back to focus on these things?
Yes.
Got it. Thank you.
Plus, also with that note, in 2025, we most likely will be reconstructing the salt dome. This would facilitate getting most of the concrete work completed out of the way, leaving the yard space open for the salt dome reconstruction.
If there's nothing further,
Move to approve the DPW concrete replacement to Hartwell Cement Company located in Oak Park, not to exceed $173,000.
motion by Mrs. Balk, supported by Mr. Parkins. Clerk Bachman.
Parkins,
Yes.
Shaman,
Yes.
Taylor,
Yes.
Bulk,
Yes.
and LaRussa.
Yes. Thank you. Motion carries unanimously. Item 6D, fuel pumps and recording equipment.
We've been working on this for several years. As you can tell by the dates of some of the quotes that we've been supplied, and we were just dumbfounded by the cost of some of these replacements. I then reached out to Corrigan Oils. They seem to be the most workable, give us more options that are possible. Probably one of the most informative things is the second page of the information here. You know, what each contractor was going to do for us and what the opportunity was and what the total cost is. Main reason why Corrigan cost is so much less than the other vendors is we would be required, if Corrigan supplies us with the new fuel pumps, the new fuel tanks, the new fuel recording equipment, we'd have to change the Corrigan oil as our fuel supplier. We've looked at the rates that Corrigan would be charging us versus the current rates that we're paying our current vendor, and they're on par. Actually, Corrigan would be a little bit less than our current vendor. Our fuel pumps are 25 years old. Our current fuel tanks are supplied by our current fuel vendor, so moving to Corrigan, we'd be getting new fuel tanks set on the new concrete, which actually the fuel tanks would be raised on an elevated fuel island, keeping them out of the way of the salt spray and salt wash coming out of the salt dome. So, questions for me, council? I know you have to have some.
Mr. Schneeman.
And how long would that agreement with Corrigan last?
Right now, Tom's office is working on finalizing the details of the length of the agreement. Right now, it was originally proposed to be a 3 to 5 year agreement with them, but it's still all in both Joellen's hands and their legal counsel. They're getting all the fine tuning to the contract done.
Okay, but we're not talking about 10, 15, 20 years.
No. I could see it potentially be a 10-year contract, but right now they are looking at not going that long of a term. Right now, we have, city administration has not been able to find a recorded contract with our current fuel vendor.
Just
going.
one follow-up question. Is there any limitation to the amount of rate adjustment that Corrigan could charge?
Yes, that's all included with the contract that they're working on. It gives a cost over whatever the refinery current market price is, so much cost over that there. So with that there, we are less costly than going to the corner gas station. Plus, we always have fuel on demand powered by a backup generator.
But you can't get lotto tickets.
No, we can't get lotto tickets.
So we're being asked to approve this even though the contract's still being negotiated.
Correct.
Is there a reason why it can't wait till the contract is ready to review?
Trying to get this all in motion here as soon as possible. We have limited time with the contractor. Not to say we have limited time with the contractor. We're trying to get into the contractor's schedule to get the concrete removed and replaced. So like I said, this goes hand in hand. If you choose to wait for the contract to be finalized that Joellen's working on, we can wait.
I mean, I've got confidence in our legal counsel that they're going to protect the city's interests. So I wouldn't necessarily, I don't see any huge red flags, I guess, let's just say that. If I did, then I might be more concerned about slowing down. But, I mean, I would be, based on your answers, I'd be comfortable supporting this.
I can forward you the contract when it's completed for your knowledge or review.
It's all coming out of your budget anyway, right?
General fund, water and sewer, so yes. and the Millage Capital Improvement Program.
So now I have a question. So by obligating ourselves to use the Corrigan fuel pumps, we're basically agreeing to their fuel rate. And what's to stop them now, after we approve this, from changing the fuel rate to something less competitive?
Well, at the same time, we're not going to sign the contract we are not going to, if council agrees to this tonight, it's all based upon what the final outcome of the contract write-up between that Joe Allen is working with their legal team also.
Okay, so you're asking for the appropriation, but you're not going to execute until you have the variable cost nailed down for the actual fuel?
Yes.
Okay. And I see the savings for the city by splitting the concrete work and the fuel pumps save the city $21,000. So thank you for that. That was a very nice surprise to find in the packet. Okay. If there are no other questions, is there a
Move to
motion?
approve the replacement of fuel pumps and recording equipment to Corrigan Oil Company located in Brighton, Michigan, in the amount of $11,412, a plus $5,000 contingency for electrical conduit replacement totaling $16,412, subject to any minor amendments to the final from the city manager's office and the city attorney's office.
Support.
Motion by Mrs. Balk, supported by Ms. Taylor. Clerk Bachman.
Shaman,
Yes.
Taylor,
Yes.
Bulk,
Yes.
LaRussa,
Yes.
and Perkins.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Chuck. Next item on the agenda is 6E, consideration to install building security at the Public Works Planning and Building Facility and to enhance the existing camera system throughout downtown Farmington. Back to you.
Yes, both Public Safety Director Bob Johannesson, myself, and DDA Director Kate Knight met on this topic, wanting to improve some security enhancements at all the facilities. Basically, Public Works has zero, besides the locked gate and the doors being locked, we have no security system on the building. We'd like to enhance that, move away from key operated locks on doors into key fobs, also put some security cameras around the building. Not only does Public Works have our building, we have our yard space where we keep a large number of supplies stored. We also have the water booster station, which current Homeland Security is highly recommending putting enhanced security on any facility. So with that, there are some gaps in Bob's security system that he wanted to have addressed that will benefit both downtown, the community, and everybody visiting Farmington.
Questions from the council? How much of this was, did we budget for the RAP grant, or is that another?
We received the RAP
surprise?
grant, I believe it was 2 years ago, and we had some funding left over. We have substantial funding left over. I believe it's almost $69,000 left that we can use. It's a 50-50 match or dollar per dollar match. So with this here, we started looking at public works, security improvements, and then we rolled in everything else. So right now, we would maximize our grant plus have we'd be a couple $1,000s more than what they would match for us. So basically, I believe we would have like $72,000 or $74,000 out of pocket expense, while the RAP grant would match $69,000.
What was budgeted, 70 or 100?
This is all for next fiscal year.
So it's going into next
Yes,
fiscal
next
year's
fiscal
budget.
year's budget, yes.
Okay. So we're going to appropriate before we approve the budget.
We're asking you to do that again, yes. With this here being said, there's a 12 to 14 week time frame for materials to be ordered and shipped. So basically, none of the materials are proprietary, but they're not necessarily off-the-shelf items that the vendor has on hand. The vendor is the current vendor used at City Hall for all the other keyless entry and security cameras at City Hall.
Do they require some sort of down payment to procure the material, or they just want a purchase order?
PO.
Okay. So you need the appropriation. Okay. Unless there's any other questions, is there a motion?
Move to approve the proposal submitted by Advanced Satellite Communication, Inc., ASC, for the installation of security cameras and door proximity access controls for the Public Works Planning and Building Facility, and to add cameras in the downtown in the amount of $140,031.85, with approximately 50% of that cost, $69,000, coming from a MMRMA Risk Avoidance Program RAP grant. This project will be scheduled after the 2024-2025 budget is approved by City Council.
Support.
Motion by Mr. Parkins, supported by Mrs. Balk. Clerk Bachman, will you please call the roll?
Taylor?
Yes.
Falk?
Yes.
LaRussa?
Yes.
Parkins?
Yes.
Schneeman?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries unanimously. Next item on the agenda, 6F, second reading and consideration to adopt the proposed amendment to the City of Farmington Code of Ordinances, Chapter 7, Buildings and Building Regulations to add a new Article 3, demolition. Mr. Christensen, the floor is yours.
Good evening. Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Council. As the Mayor indicated, this item is a request for adoption of a proposed amendment to the City of Farmington Code of Ordinances, Chapter 7, Buildings and Building Regulations, to add a new Article 3, demolition. This was before you on March 4th. At that meeting, you had a first reading, and you approved that first reading. So this is the second reading this evening, which is then the request as well for not only approval, second reading, but adoption of the ordinance. You might note from the staff report, there's some additional information. There was one minor change to the draft, and that was the height of required fencing to be consistent, 6 feet in that document then. And also there was some question with respect to how this ordinance then was drafted. It was drafted by the City Attorney's Office after consultation with the Planning and Building Department and the City of Farmington building official. And there were some existing community ordinances that we had been privy to that were used to put this ordinance together, specifically from the City of Southfield and from the City of Pontiac. So it's before you this evening for adoption.
Thank you, Mr. Christensen. Discussion from the council. I know it's the first time, I think, seeing it for Mr. Schneeman. Did you have any questions? Okay. So Southfield and Pontiac, so how much of this is Farmington then?
Well, it's all Farmington because it was, prepared for the city. But those two ordinances were used as examples in putting it together again. The city planning and building department, the city building official, and city attorney worked that through then to put together this draft, which then was fit for the city.
Okay. For the permits, this is typically something that would be facilitated by the contractor, not necessarily the property owner, correct?
Well, there's a combination in application. Applications always require the approval of the property owner for any sort of activity, but certainly the contractor doing the work also is required to be part of that permit process. They are required to have licensure, to have insurance, and to basically be in good standing in order to have that permit be able to be implemented by them.
So do we have a model permit, or are we creating something new here?
No, we have a standing application process, so we'll cater a application specific to this type of activity, like we have a building permit. It'll be a building permit with the demolition elements.
Okay. Mr. Schneeman.
I do have one question. Kevin, is there a cutoff? I didn't see one as far as size of structure.
There isn't any specificity.
So if I have a shed
Yep.
and I want to tear it down,
I guess, and Jeff Bodell is here this evening, and Jeff deals with this on a daily basis. He might be able to be.
I was thinking of this in terms of, say, MTC, right? Which I think it's good that we're going to have some.
MTC, Legion, and the like, yep.
But, if we're using this, a sledgehammer to try and govern the demolition of small, maybe accessory structures in a person's yard, and somehow then, if I want to tear down a shed, I've got to prove to the city that I've had a Phase 1 and a Phase 2 environmental done.
Right.
That I think could be problematic. So I guess, is there any sort of?
There's a process for that. There's a scale for that. If somebody's going to replace, let's just go to a residential property, an existing shed, part of the permit requirement to put up a new shed in its place is to remove the old one. And that's just a matter of the permit. As far as any sort of compliance with this ordinance and the levels and the steps that are necessary for something like that, we wouldn't make them go through that process. But again, if you have questions, Jeff is here. He could certainly tell you what he does when somebody applies for something on a smaller scale, like a shed, like a smaller structure. Again, if you're going to replace something that exists, one of the requirements for a permit for that new construction is to remove the old.
And what if you're not going to replace it?
If you want to add a second one,
No. You have a shed, you want it gone.
if you're just going to remove it, then there isn't a permit to go ahead and remove something like that on your property. You don't need that permit for that scale of activity.
I guess that's what I'm looking for, because I didn't see that in the
Nope.
ordinance. I didn't see any sense of where the cutoff is.
Again, Jeff can certainly answer where he's at with that in his capacity.
And Jeff Bodell, your building official, you want to get a permit even for that little tiny structure, or else you're never going to get it off your taxes. Because the county assesses you for an accessory structure, and if you don't get a permit, it stays on your taxes and you pay for it even though it's gone. But you wouldn't have to go through all this, we'd just make sure you took the thing down.
Well, I guess, and I appreciate that you're both saying that, but let's just imagine a day when neither of you is here and there's new people that are in your shoes, and they're looking in this ordinance and somebody wants to take down a shed. They're looking at this saying, you got a lot of work you got to do here if you want to take that little shed down.
Well, I would only say that if you hire a building official that has that little experience that would require something like that, there are no utilities in a shed. If there were, you would have to get a disconnect, because we want to make sure the electric comes out before you tear it down. So most people that have attained the building official level would know the difference between the demolition of a house and something with utilities or a building and an accessory structure. But certainly a garage is an accessory structure, and many of them have electric in them. And we make you take the electric out before you tear the garage down. Now, people have come and said, I want to leave my slab and rat wall because I intend on building another one, but I can't afford it. We would allow that to happen, even though that ordinance says 100% removal, because they may not have the money for 10 years and may never have the money, but then we just end up with a driveway in a backyard, as opposed to a site where you've taken a building down, left the foundations in the ground, and it kind of renders the site unusable.
And then I guess, because it said this was from Southfield and Farmington, kind of adopted for Farmington, or adjusted for Farmington, Southfield and Pontiac, adjusted for Farmington. And those are obviously much larger municipalities than Farmington. Was there, in those examples, was there no sort of identification of scale and what would trigger the need to go through this process?
There was not. Both of those communities had very large, especially Pontiac, large demolitions. The big thing is when you tell someone, and it's really in the first page, it requires 100% removal. Because we have people in our town who have tried to put an addition on the back of their house only to find that someone buried a swimming pool and did not remove it. And, short of the building official stating to them, you don't have a permit to use your property as a landfill, there's nothing on our books that says you have to take everything out of the ground. So you really need something to make sure that they clean everything out of the ground properly. And you're not the only community that does not have a demolition ordinance. There's lots of them. And they kind of fly by the seat of the building inspector telling someone to do something without the legal authority of the words in an ordinance that you're looking at this evening.
So would this then, because I know that the city has allowed people to fill in-ground pools by opening up the bottom of the pool to make sure that it doesn't hold water. Would this ordinance then disallow that practice?
That's absolutely correct, and that should really never happen. I unfortunately had to look a veteran in a wheelchair in the eye, and as I tried to help him get through, he was trying to put an addition on a ranch home that he bought on a slab, and he had got all his financing done, he got everything ready to go, and he put a shovel in the ground. There was a buried swimming pool nobody knew about. He had to scrap his plans, sell the house, and go somewhere else. No one should be allowed to bury debris in a property, ever, including a swimming pool. You don't want it anymore, so you want to get out the cheapest way you can and render that backyard unusable to someone that wants to use it in the future. If you go to a community like Birmingham, today, they're building houses on the whole darn lot. Well, if you were the unlucky guy that bought the house that used to have a pool 40 years ago, you get the extra expense of removing their pool now because they didn't want to pay for it when they got rid of it. So that's the purpose of the 100%.
Is there a section in here that talks about pools specifically?
No,
I
it's,
didn't see that.
it's all demolition, and it really is, you can't leave any debris in the ground. That's what that says.
I guess, I'm a little uncomfortable supporting this. I was looking at it.
You're not alone.
I was looking at it in terms of something like MTC or a large building.
Right, exactly.
Which makes a lot of sense for, but I also feel like this could potentially open the door up for creating a lot of difficulty for our homeowners. And I'll give you an example. I just took down a small, probably 6x6 shed that had been in a house backyard for a very long time, had no foundation. One swat with the backhoe and it was gone instantly. And then we disposed of it with a dumpster that we ordered. But I didn't pull a permit for that because I didn't think that I had to. There was no power or any utilities to it. It was a potting shed. But it sounds like potentially following the letter of the law here, we would need to in the future. I understand you're saying that you wouldn't necessarily enforce it that way, but, for better, for worse, the words that we put on the page, we need to do our very best as a city to try and make sure that for us, and then obviously even for future administration and staff and council people, that we did our best to try and anticipate any potential additional complications that we may be imposing on, particularly on the residents. So I guess I would ask, personally, if there's a way that we could build into this. I have no problem. I think we should have a demolition ordinance for the record, but I would be great if we could find a way to maybe look at some other ordinances from other communities and try and build in some protections so that we do at least identify that there are different scales of these things in people's yards. And there's a difference between taking down an old, school building versus taking down a small potting shed in one's backyard. It'd be great if we could have some language in there that tries to address that.
I would only say, and that's fine, if you can do your own search, no other communities have demolition ordinances.
No.
It's one of those things that everybody says, the building official said, and that's what I have to do. And I don't like to have to say, because I said so. I want to say, see here, it says 100% removal. Now, that being said, I don't know what your garage is worth or your little tiny shed. Did you ever look to see if your shed was being assessed? You have an accessory structure?
I don't know if it was on the books, but that's a good question, Jeff.
Because if
It was completely covered by vines, so you couldn't even see it, really.
Right.
Like a
Part of
giant
the landscape.
shrub.
Well, an example, one of your neighbors had something that was falling down, and, it was falling down, and we told him he was going to have to get rid of it, and that thing disappeared, and we didn't ask him to get a permit, but in the same respect, if that thing's still on his tax roll, he's going to pay for it forever, and it'll end up costing a lot more than a permit by the time he's done. So, I understand what you're asking. I don't know how you put a size on something. You could, less than 25 square feet, less than 12 square feet. The county assesses at 100. If you have less than 100, they do not assess it.
Beth, did you have something to add?
I guess rather than just looking at square feet, could you say, some other factors like no utilities run to it, no foundation?
That kind of speaks to the feedback that I gave in the last meeting where I feel like this is a bit of over-legislating because the words on the page say, the application for the permit shall include, and then there's like 13 things, including an MDEQ asbestos survey and an EPA 10, shall include these 12 things. And then I want to allow the administration the flexibility to assess a particular job, and I appreciate that any building official worth their salt would be able to assess this, I mean, I would like to allow that flexibility, because in the same breath, I find it hard to believe that any building official worth their salt who saw a site plan with a pool didn't say, take all that out of there. So I feel like everybody's saying we want to have this, and it would be helpful to have this, and it would help you having to not say no because I said so. But I also feel like there needs to be some sort of fast lane or express lane, or there's got to be some criteria where we're not using the most assertive legislative action to govern every single project within the city limits. There has to be a way to incorporate some flexibility or limitation on the amount of regulation that we're going to put on this. But I think everybody agrees it's a good thing to have.
Mr. Mayor, I would only say this. For many years now, Farmington and all the other communities have taken buildings down using the building official's ability to use common sense. This ordinance, I hope you would always have a building official that would use common sense on a 8-square-foot potting shed.
Well, but that's not what the ordinance says, right?
Well, it's because the building official has the ability to.
I would like somebody to point to the language in this proposed ordinance that says, at the discretion of the building official, XYZ can happen. I do not see that.
Well, I guess we could add that, but it may be there. I'm going to have to.
What might be most prudent, what might be most prudent, and it seems reasonable, and certainly hearing the comments made and appreciating them, maybe is to work with the city attorney's office and Mr. Bodell putting together some additional language that would differentiate by potentially structure type and size of structure, scale, and some other elements we talked about being served by infrastructure, that kind of thing, so that there would be that differentiation, whether it's a fast lane or now maybe not even a requirement, just depending. Let us work that through and bring that back to you for an adjustment and a slight modification based upon your comments, and then maybe we can move forward with a second reading. Certainly, and the comments that have also been made here too, one of the concerns we've had, which is why this is here before you, is at the city's point in its history with all the redevelopment that we are realizing, and with the scale of that redevelopment, we're dealing with structures where, unfortunately, the old construction that used to be on some of the sites were buried in the ground. And that's why we're dealing with some environmental issues, which we really did not know and anticipate, and came about because of that practice over the time that it happened. We don't want to see that happen again, but we also need to have some standards, and we've talked about that. But we certainly would take your comments and bring back some language then that could address your concerns as you've talked about this evening.
I mean, unless there's others who would like to. Ms.
I
Taylor?
supported this in the first place because I think it's better to have a process than rely on general practice. And it sounds like we need to add some more process in to just to reflect the difference between, homeowner shed versus large commercial building. So I would support bringing this back with that kind of differentiating language. I think it'll make it stronger.
Mr. Schneeman?
If I could add one request, I think it would probably also be worthwhile to add language in there for in-ground pools.
Okay.
Because I know Farmington, there are a lot of in-ground pools that have been filled in this town over the years that are still there. Opened up because I think that was what the building official at the time, John Council, had requested.
Actually, John had found a company for pools. Name of it's Pool Busters, not that I want to advertise for them, but they have taken a number of our pools out. He's busy 350 days a year, and in one day or a day and a half, that whole thing disappears and the hole gets filled in. He barely makes a mess, which is amazing if you've ever watched how those things go in. So there are companies that do it. Most people just find anybody they can find. They're in a hurry to get it out of their yard, and they've crushed them and buried them, and it's a bad day.
Okay.
I guess another question I had was on the bonds. Is there a reason we didn't do the bond schedule outside the ordinance and allow that to be modified by, either by administrative action or having that come once a year? Like, we have other fee schedules that come before the council on a regular basis. They're not legislated. So I'm curious why the bond schedule was also legislated and not done outside the ordinance.
Not any reason. That certainly is something that could be, it's just all in one document. When you hand them the ordinance, it's all there. Other than that, there's no other good reason. You certainly could put it in a fee schedule. It's just that it gives it, they have to look in two places.
I just would hate to have to revisit this every time we say, well, now the compliance cost is,
It's a good question, Mayor, and we're actually going through an exercise right now, city administration, at the request of the city manager's office to look at all of our fees. We're making some adjustments. I'm anticipating that then will come before you, and this certainly then could be part of the fee schedule. We have two chapters, Chapter 9, Chapter 10, which relate to building and relate to planning fees. Certainly can make sure that if it's in this document, if it's in this ordinance, also then in that standing fee
I
schedule.
was going to say, my suggestion would be to alter the section you're asking for tonight, which is the smaller residential type structures. Leave this section in for now, and when we come back, we'll put it in the other schedule and strike it from this ordinance.
Yeah, either way. Same thing for the limits of liability. I don't know if we want that to also be something that's outside or if that's legislated. That just, anytime I see the numbers in there, it just asks that.
I think what might be most reasonable for that, if I might, is for us to work with the city attorney and get their advice as to what would be most reasonable, whether we strike it or not, keep it in both places, have it in the ordinance so it's complete, and then also have it in the fee schedule where we make some adjustment to that, and we'll work with the attorney's office to do that.
Mr. Schneeman.
I hate to pile on here, but, I'm looking at the safety and fencing, so if I have a small addition on my house that I want to tear off and then do another addition or something, according to this, I have to put safety fencing around my entire property, which I think is ludicrous.
If I may, the state construction code and your building code starts with what requires a permit. And if you've ever read it, it's kind of amazing, but it's basically anything more than flushing your toilet at your house requires a permit, and you got to ask the building official. So when you apply to the building official for a permit, that's where those things would normally happen. We have had people put very large additions on. Some people take longer than others. There's really no time limit if you're still working. We haven't made people fence things that are, the fellow right downtown on the sidewalk, we ask him to fence. But the people that, tear something off and put something on, we've never asked for it, if they can maintain a safe construction site during construction. That's part of a normal construction practice. It happens every time somebody does construction. Do we need to protect the public from what you're doing or not? Are you right next to a school and have an attractive nuisance, as we did with our new subdivision? We were yelling at them all the time about fencing the holes and so on. That's not written in the code. That's part of the building official's job.
But I think, Jeff, what you're saying is, even though the language, if I read this, it says I have to put a fence up around my entire site, you're saying that the building official could waive that requirement?
That's correct. Absolutely. If it wasn't deemed necessary. And in the same respect, if you're tearing a house down.
It doesn't say that, that's the problem.
We could require you to put a fence around a property and tear the house down.
It'd be great, why can't we have language in there that says,
Well, we're
at the building
going to.
official's
That's going to be part of the language.
discretion? Okay.
That's part of the language. In other words, you want the building official to have some discretion, not only for the size of structures, but for the requirement for fencing. But if it's it has to be waived by the building official as opposed to required by the building official. Either way, it's better for me to be waived by the building official than errs in the side of safety.
And I have no problem with that, but
Yeah, I think.
again, there's just.
So I think that language is a little broader than what you're thinking, because it does say entire site or area on the site, and then ends with as approved by building official. So I think that does leave some discretion for Jeff to say, that's the area on the site that needs to be fenced.
And I think too, and as we're all talking together right now, again, as we're going to work to bring some language back to you, then that would differentiate between use types and scale and the requirements thereof. We certainly can also look at this area. Certainly, there's a marked difference in the community, that we have here in Farmington between our non-residential development our commercial office, our industrial, and our residential development, in particular our detached single-family. And I think having some language that differentiates maybe between that is very reasonable, and I hear what's being said here. And certainly then, if there is requirement, which there would be for commercial office, industrial, non-residential, for fences to secure sites and protect them, that we could certainly provide language that upon determination by the building official that it's not necessary or something to that effect for residential properties. Again, still giving him the latitude to do that if it's deemed to be necessary, because sometimes we might have the scale of redevelopment in a residential area that might necessitate it for safety, but give him the latitude, the building official, whomever it might be, to make that call.
Okay, sounds good.
So I don't think there's any action tonight unless somebody wants to make a motion. I think the feedback is clear, or any questions? Any last questions from the administration, or?
The only thing I might ask, and I don't know if it's reasonable maybe for your consideration, would be to table action to allow for the Planning and Building Department and the city attorney to address the comments made by council and bring back a revised ordinance for your consideration in a second reading.
Yeah, I think the statement is we're not going to take any action on this item. It's going to have to come back.
Whatever you choose
Yep.
to do, I
Yep.
would just think that's where we go.
Yep. Any further discussion? Thank you very much. We're one step closer. I know it doesn't feel that way, but we're ever closer. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is other business. Mr. Murphy, is there any other business this evening?
No, sir.
Ms. Taylor?
We didn't actually move to table it.
We don't have to. There's no action to table. We didn't take any action. Unless I missed something. Beth?
I don't think it's either way. If you want to table it, table it. If you just want to leave it for changes to come back for second reading again, that's fine.
Okay. All right. If there's no other business, the next item on the agenda is our second public comment. This is the second part of the meeting where members of the public may address the city council. Please state your name and address for the record, and please keep your comments to a time limit of 3 to 5 minutes if at all possible. Are there any members of the public who wish to make public comment? Ms. Davies, step right up.
Sarah Davies, 23120 Violet Street. Good evening, council. I've spent much of my time in my life giving back to and volunteering in Farmington. As a child in the early 90s, I was a student in a class at a Farmington elementary school that won a Keep Michigan Beautiful Award for planting a tree on the school property. And 7 years ago, I was honored to be a part of a group of local activists, including Mayor LaRussa, who worked together to open a new park at the location of that same elementary school. I was motivated after my involvement with the park to continue volunteering in the city, and 5 years ago, I joined the beautification committee. After the former committee chair stepped down, I was voluntold to chair the committee, and I am so proud of all that we've done over the past few years. Our proceeds for the sunflower sales have increased significantly, helping to increase our annual budget. We've gone from struggling to keep 4 or 5 people on the committee to where we are now, with so much interest in joining that we actually have a waiting list to secure a seat. We started Edible Farmington, a local project where residents of both Farmington and Farmington Hills grow produce at home and donate their abundant produce to CARES, which then uses that in their free pantry, which is a great opportunity for us to all help our neighbors. We are now a part of the annual litter cleanup event, the Great Farmington Cleanup, which is coming up on April 27th. Last year, even with not the best weather, we had over 250 volunteers. And this year, with it being the bicentennial year, we are en route to have over 200 prizes to raffle off to the volunteers, all of which have been donated. 4 years ago, we started the beautification contest and parade, which, as Councilmember Taylor once quoted, is the best 10 minutes of an October. This opportunity and privilege to be on the beautification committee has been very fulfilling. I feel that I've made positive contributions to our community, and I'm very proud of what we've accomplished over the last 5 years. Sorry. But we do have more interest than we have room for. And I would be foolish to think that the council will once again raise the amount of seats on the committee, as you did for us a few years ago. It's a wonderful problem to have too many community members who want to volunteer. We do not have term limits on the beautification committee, but I can recognize that it's time for me to step down and allow those who've already applied or those whose applicants are on the way to have opportunities similar to the one that I've been blessed with. There is an importance as a volunteer to understand how your talents can help an organization, and equally as important to know when it's time to step aside. I plan to help the committee during this transition and have no doubt that the group will continue to flourish, grow, and beautify Farmington. And please know, I'm not going anywhere, but I'm merely going to invest my volunteer time in different aspects in our community. I want to express my sincere gratitude to you, Mayor LaRussa, the council, especially Councilwoman Taylor, who's been supportive of all of the beautification ideas always. To my favorite money man, who's not here tonight, Chris Weber, who's educated me and provided me incredible guidance and patience over the years. To Chuck Udi, who's been more than helpful to our group. And to Melissa Andrade, who I would be lost without. Melissa's kindness, intelligence, love, and support is something I will always be grateful for. She may be the best valuable asset that our city has. I'm also so thankful for all the members of the beauty team, past and present. The friendships, experiences, and skills I've gained during my time on the beautification committee have been truly invaluable, and they've played a significant role in shaping my personal and professional growth. Thank you again for this remarkable opportunity. Stay beautiful.
Thank you, Ms. Davies. Any other members of the public who wish to make public comment at this time? That brings us to item 9, city council comment, and I know that there's a couple of us that are probably want to say something, so Mrs. Balk.
Sarah, I appreciate your thoughts. I'm sad to see you go. I completely respect your decision, but know that you have been truly valuable. Every event has been wonderful, the cleanup, the boo, all of the things. And so your heart is, and even just your support of those being interviewed, the fact that you show up every time you show up, and I don't think anything could be said more than that you show up. And so we thank you. We look forward to seeing what your next, where you decide to put your energies, but you will be missed on the beautification.
Mr. Schneeman.
Sarah, I want to echo those comments. You've brought a fantastic energy to the beautification committee and really, in my opinion, kind of transformed that group into incredibly dynamic part of our volunteer force in Farmington. And I think it's in large part due to your efforts that so many people are interested, frankly, in serving. And so I also will miss having you very much, and glad to hear that you aren't going anywhere, that you're going to continue to pour yourself into the community that you love. So thank you, a heartfelt thank you for all of the hard work and passion that you've brought to that position.
Ms. Taylor.
I'll add to that, your impact on the beautification committee and all things Farmington beautification it's immense. Like you said, you have transformed the beautification committee, but also in your recruitment, it's gone past recruiting for that committee, because people you've recruited have gone on to interview for and be appointed to the Pathways Committee, I believe the Historical Commission, other committees as well. So that's directly due to you and your efforts and your advocacy, so thank you for that. And I think as volunteers, the best thing that can happen as a result of our volunteering is that the things we feel most passionate about continue even after we step down from the committee, we move to a different community, we change the direction of our passions, that those things continue on and become even bigger and better in the community, and that is definitely the case with your volunteering. So thank you so much, Sarah.
Mr. Parkins.
I guess I would just say, I know we've only briefly got to work with each other, but, in all the interviews, I know you were there, you showed up, your passion and dedication to Farmington as a parent, and for that, thank you. To your point, it's an amazing problem to have. It's part of the reason I love being here in Farmington. Farmington shows up. We have volunteers, and they just are in such bountiful supply that there's a lot of times not room for, everyone to do everything that they want to do all the time. And it's a great problem to have, but I just want to say well done and thank you.
I don't know whether to applaud or cry. I mean, I'm having a moment up here. Having served alongside you for as long as I have, I know every time I walk, every time I look around, I see your hands on this city. And you should be extraordinarily proud of everything you've done and all the people that you have impacted and motivated and supported in this city. And your leadership, it speaks for itself. And I am deeply moved by how much you've accomplished and what you have yet to accomplish. I know that there's some diabolical scheme whirling about in that big brain of yours. I know you've got something planned. I just don't know what it is yet. So we're gonna get to the bottom of that. But Sarah, genuinely, thank you for everything that you have done for Farmington, and thank you for all that you have yet to do. I can't wait to see the next chapter. Thank you very much. I'd also like to thank the council for our strong representation at the MML CapCon. I think we showed well and listened and learned a lot, and it was a lot of good content. So thank you to all of you that attended. Is there any other council comment this evening?
Joe.
Ms. Bulk.
I did not want to overlook, though, your comment about Melissa, that we all 100% agree with that as well. So I didn't want to take away from your moment, but I do also want to reiterate that you are right. She runs this place. We all know it. It's fine. And speaking of that, I do want to also invite everyone. Thursday night, we are having our artist reception. Melissa and I have some things cooked up with the help of the Arts Commission. So please come out and celebrate. Our artists have been invited, and we'll have just a little gathering at 7 o'clock on Thursday here in the hallways. You can check out the art and meet the artists.
Thank you. If there's no other council comment, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved. Support.
Motion by Schneeman, supported by Taylor. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries unanimously. We are adjourned at 8:10 PM.